This episode is sponsored by our friends over at Particle. The watch world had been for years begging Rolex for a Coke GMT, and the Rolex brand did not deliver, but the Rolex company did, and they did through Tudor. That's not the only piece of news we have from this year's Watches and Wonders as it pertains to the Tudor brand. We've also got a new Black Bay in gold. We have a monochromatic Black Bay. A couple of interesting things. We have another terrible ladies' watch. A lot to talk about here today. I'm not wearing a Tudor, even though I should be. I'm wearing a Patek Philippe Calatrava with a really beautiful enamel dial. It's absolutely stunning. We'll talk more about this watch toward the end of this episode and why I think that, Patek Philippe understands the dress watch and elegance far better than Tudor does. Let's get into the first, issue at hand here. We'll get into the Coke a little bit later in the episode. The first one I want to talk about today is this, yellow gold Black Bay. So this, as a watch, is not news. I actually really think that this watch, when it was introduced in 2021, was awesome, right? In 2021, right, this was on the middle of the COVID watch craze. The big trend was the rise in value of integrated steel sports watches, right? Everyone wanted to make steel watches expensive, and Tudor, a purveyor of affordable, super high quality steel sports watches, said, "Oh yeah? Well, we're going to make a yellow gold watch now." Right? That was so cool. It was so contrarian. I thought it was really neat. And they released their Black Bay in yellow gold, kind of contrarian, which was a stance that I didn't expect to come from Tudor, right? A brand like Moser is always trying to make contrarian statements. And in my view, that you end up sounding like the class kind of clown. I'm a big Moser fan. I really like the brand. But I think that when a lot of what you do is a joke, it kind of gets drowned out a little bit. I don't remember a single thing John Benner ever said in school, right? I just remember him being a fool, right? Even though he's probably a nice and smart guy, it doesn't matter, right? Everyone remembers that person, and brands and brand perception really is no different. But Tudor doing this, right? Kind of throwing in a right hook after a bunch of jabs was really interesting, and I think it was effective. I don't know who bought this watch. I just know one guy. I don't know of anyone else that went and bought this yellow gold Tudor, but I do know my friend Michael out there. He's an attorney friend based in New York, good friend of mine for years, did buy the watch. Really neat. I think I've even seen it on his wrist. I think I tried it on. It's cool. I think he's nuts for buying it. It really was one of the more expensive watches in his collection. He's also not the biggest Tudor guy or even Rolex sports watch guy. So it was a bizarre purchase. But I think that he really bought into Tudor's big kind of FU or big, swinging against the tide sort of thing in 21. So I appreciate that. At $16,800, the watch was nuts. Now Tudor's re-released it at $32,100, right? And very little has changed to the watch other than the addition of a bracelet, right, in yellow gold. But now it's $32,100. I don't think it's funny anymore because the moment has passed and you're not really making the statement. You've kind of already made the statement. Whether it worked or didn't, I assume it actually worked because you're doing it again. But, I think that my problem now is, the $16,800 Tudor in yellow gold didn't really have a comp from Rolex that was, close, right? Any yellow gold Rolex from the store is significantly more expensive, right? I mean, they don't make, Submariners and precious metal on straps, right? So the delta is pretty high, right? A Submariner in yellow gold or a GMT in yellow gold is $39,000. But now with the addition of the bracelet, that brings that delta, so much smaller, right? It's not 17,000 versus 39, it's 32 versus 39. And in that, I say, well, I don't think that Tudor is really I don't think they're really filling a needed gap anymore, or I don't know if the gap ever really, demanded anything, but at least it was funny and it kind of made sense. Now, I don't know. Whatever. I don't really care about this watch. I'm certainly not going to buy it. I don't know if I'll ever run into someone that does buy it. I imagine you would buy it to gain favor with Tudor, but I also don't know that many people that are trying to gain favor with Tudor, right? Maybe if you're trying to gain favor with Rolex. I really don't know. That being said, I don't give this watch a bad rating. I just don't particularly care about it. which is really my same sentiment on a lot of Tudor's releases. Apart from last year when they refined their profiles a little bit and their Jubilee bracelet, but like this next piece, this Black Bay Monochrome, which is essentially the black version of the Black Bay Burgundy from last year. I really love this watch on the Jubilee. I think it's great. I think this watch is great and it's beautiful and it's appropriately priced. Period. It's a master chronometer. There's nothing not to like about this watch, right? I mean, kind of going away from gilt, right? Going away from the rose, right, or the yellow gold lettering that Tudor has been doing since their reintroduction in 2013, I believe, or 2012. Clearly makes it look more like a Rolex. I mean, obviously. I think these watches on Jubilee are awesome. What else am I really supposed to say about this watch, right? It's a good value. It's a good value. It's a reliable oyster case on a Jubilee that is interchangeable, so you can go to rubber very quickly, right? So that's something that you can't do with a Submariner from Rolex. That's it, But also, it's not supposed to be much more, right? This is Tudor, right? Tudor is a growing brand, but it's also such an established brand. It's not a brand that needs to reinvent the wheel and compete so aggressively in development for market share, right? That's a game that is played by other brands, right? Like Christopher Ward's a really good example. Christopher Ward is a brand that, is inching up market by the day and working very, very hard to do that. They need to deliver wild stuff like the Belcanto or certain 12s or all these different things, moon phases, in order to continue to grow their momentum. And they need to kind of reinvent the wheel on a fairly regular basis, right? To keep up and keep their growth. Tudor doesn't. Tudor can improve upon, their strap changing system and maybe make their colors a little bit better. And, that's good. It's great. That's what a watch should be, right? So, I'm not going to fawn over it, but it's certainly nice. I'd certainly recommend this to anybody, right? I'd certainly recommend, anyone that wants a sports watch, it's great. Unlike this Clair de Rose. Tudor, so the reason that Tudor, in my view, keeps failing on the ladies' front is because, this is the weird part, unlike the rest of Tudor's collection, where they're pretty comfortable basically relying on classic Rolex designs, right? They're pretty comfortable relying on the oyster and relying on tried and true Rolex design language. They just insist on trying to reinvent the wheel in the ladies' collection, and it doesn't work, right? This Clair de Rose, I don't think this is a nice watch. I don't think that women are going to find this to be a nice watch. And this is just another example of Tudor, I think, missing in the ladies' collection. I don't understand why they don't just make a Lady Datejust. I don't understand. The Black Bays are pretty close to Submariners, right? Come on. So I don't understand why they just won't play it safer with the ladies. And the ladies' market is huge and it's growing. So, maybe their sales figures will prove me wrong. That's totally possible, right? I'm just shooting from the hip and giving you my gut opinion. I think I'm right, but they're, I assume, working with market research extensively. So, maybe these watches are, maybe I'm speaking to reception or I'm projecting reception in my market, and I think I'm right. Maybe they're saying, hey, you may be right about America, but our goal really is Latin America and Asia, and I don't know. Maybe my, analysis here is more, American and North American and Eurocentric. Totally possible, totally open to being absolutely wrong here. But I don't think I'm wrong. This is an unattractive watch. I think it's an unattractive collection. I don't think it's nice. And that's it. Period. The Victoria Beckham Tudor collab was kind of cool. I'm sorry, that was Breitling. It's David Beckham Tudor. It's David Beckham Tudor, Victoria Beckham Breitling. They should have made that like a husband-wife thing. I don't know. Let's take a brief 60 seconds to thank our sponsor of today's video, our friends over at Particle. Particle just released their Gravité cologne, and I know that sounds like a crazy thing for me to be talking about because I can't smell, but Sam is going to come over and smell now.
Wow, this smells really good. Definitely recommend this. I'm actually going to steal this because I need new cologne. Wow, that's good.
You're smelling pepper, you're smelling grapefruit, rosemary, freshness, you're smelling mid-notes of herbs. Guys, I may not be able to smell, I am an anosmic American, an anosmic Italian American, but I do care very much about how I smell, right? I mean, not only do I want my big, hunky male coworkers, I just called you a coworker, not an employee, that was a compliment, thinking I smell good, but I want people all around me always feeling that I'm an alluring human being, right? I want folks staying around me for longer until I, in a social human being, need to separate myself, which gravité does pose a problem with because no one ever wants to leave my presence now. It's the freshness, it's the herbs, it's somewhere between, the crisp white wine and the rosemary garden, right, in my Tuscan estate. Wow, I actually need one of those. And if you're skeptical taking, scent advice from an anosmic, I don't blame you, but you don't have to take my word for it. Particle is so confident they offer a 30-day money-back guarantee. From what everyone is telling me, it's an absolutely fantastic cologne, and the pricing structure is completely fair. Not to mention, you can get a 25% discount on the cologne because you're a friend of mine. Just go to Particle for Men and use the coupon code HarrisTheo25. The link is down below, and I'm telling you, while I can't say I smell great because I've never smelled a thing in my life, everyone is telling me that Gravité by Particle is just delightful. Last but not least, the Coke. Again, what am I supposed to say about this, guys? 39 millimeters, right? It's a 58 GMT. This is awesome. Everyone wanted it. Sam behind the camera wants a Black Bay 58 GMT. I don't know if you want the Coke model or you're waiting for a Pepsi, or they do the Pepsi in the larger, but it's in a polar. I don't know, 39 millimeters in diameter, 12.8 millimeters thick, 47.8 millimeters lug to lug. It is very close in size to the regular Black Bay 58. So there's not like this, 15 millimeter case height that's like, because of the movement that everyone's like, oh, this is a miss. It works. It works, and it's gilt, and it's the Coke it's the Coke that no one really wanted, but everyone's going to drink anyway, right? It's the Pepsi, for lack of a better word, right? I mean, not the color, like, can I have Coke? Was Pepsi okay? It's that, that's kind of what it is, and it's going to do really well. People are going to buy this watch. It's a really neat watch. Sam could buy this watch and put an aftermarket bezel on it and have a Pepsi. That's something that you would probably do, or you could just wait for them to release a color combo that you like. I've never been a Coke guy, with the bezels. I'm just not. I'm a Coca-Cola guy with pizza, and I actually prefer it over wine or beer. But I'm not a Coke bezel guy. My dad had a Pepsi. I own a Pepsi. I'm a Pepsi loyalist. I actually even like some of the root beer watches. Not all of them, but some of them. But this watch doesn't really do that much for me. But guys, keep in mind, I love Tudor. I think Tudor is great. Professionally, B2B, I recommend them all the time. B2C, me being the C, me being big C, me being the consumer, it's not me. It's just not something that I would ever buy, right? Look at the watches I wear. Little old man watches, generally speaking. I have a Carré over there. When I wear a sports watch, it usually is like a Rolex, right? Because if I'm going to wear a sports watch, I'm going to get like a super cool one that keeps me super, super interested because I'm not inherently a sports watch guy, right? I mean, if you're not a pizza guy, you're only going to want the best pizza because you already don't really love the genre, right? Anyway, I don't think I need analogies for everything. I think that you guys understand stuff without the analogies. Let's pivot away from Tudor. Let's go back in time. Let's talk about, Patek a little bit here. I absolutely love this Calatrava. 18 karat yellow gold, Roman numerals, super thin, blacked out hands. The dial to me looks enamel. Absolutely beautiful. Hobnail bezel, which is a bezel technique that they've only reintroduced fairly recently, but these old proportions are absolutely stunning. This is a gentleman's watch. This is a wealthy gentleman's watch, right? You wear this watch whether you are or are not, but you certainly will seem to be a highly educated, tasteful, guy. This is the genre of watch that I always got into, right? And I just love the extra details, right? I love that the dial has this almost lack of texture, this reflective, almost creamy finish. I think it's absolutely beautiful, right? When you get into the watch world, particularly the vintage watch world, you just keep saying, let me look closer, right? That's why the detail on the hobnail bezel is beautiful, the thinness, right? The fact that it's a manually wound watch, all of it. Listen to the winding. Listen to how beautiful this is. I mean, it's absolutely beautiful, right? These watches are great. These watches have been, the core of the Theo and Harris watch shop for years, right? This has been the focus of my admiration in vintage watches. These are the watches that I find, most reflective of my style. And as the person who, curates, for lack of a better word, the Theo and Harris shop, naturally my style is in it. And I've always enamored not only dress watches and vintage dress watches, but, watches with these super high-end names, right? The fact that you can own a Patek Philippe for a fraction of the price of a new Patek Philippe, right? It's that much more approachable, and in many cases even better than the new one. The original, is really, really neat. So if you think this watch is interesting at all, or you want to go take a look at the other watches in our shop, Cartier, Rolex, Piaget, etc., head on over to the Theo and Harris watch shop and explore. This is a beautiful Explorer as well that we have recently listed with yellow text. Talked about this in our last Rolex episode. So if you haven't already watched that, go and watch our review of new Rolex releases. Get out of here.